Okay, here's the fourth video installment for psychology over the lifespan. We've talked about how socialization, through parents, through teachers, through the environment, with toys and food and the media and all these other things impact our development for better or for worse. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how lack of socialization might impact human development. There are some children who are starved, not physically with food, but starved of physical and social stimuli. There are stories of isolation where children are literally locked in closets or given no stimulation from parents or the outside world, and it really does horribly impact their development. Now, probably the most famous case, and I'm going to kind of go through these quickly. This is in your book too, a little bit. There was a young girl named Anna. This is a true story. Anna was born. You do not have to write this stuff down, by the way. I'm just giving you this so you'll understand a little bit. Anna was born in 1932. In 1938, she was discovered in a rural Pennsylvania farmhouse in a dark storage room. Her hands were tied behind her head so she couldn't move. Her clothes were filthy. She was almost dead. She had been kept in this dark room with very little human contact and was barely fed enough food to survive. A horrific story, if you will. So a little bit more on Anna. So why? Well, the 30s were a different time than today. Anna was born to an unwed, mentally impaired mother of 26. Anna's grandfather was very strict and did not want the child in the house, so Anna was passed from one foster home to the next until age 6 months, at which time she returned home, and grandfather didn't want anything to do with Anna, so she lived in a dark storage closet for 5 years with very little, if any, human contact. So you can imagine all the major developmental milestones that Anna missed, not having any nurturing, not having any social stimuli, nothing to look at, no toys, barely enough food to survive, nothing. Now she was rescued at age 5.5. She could not speak or use language because she'd never been exposed to it. She didn't laugh. She could not smile. She was completely unresponsive. She didn't learn the social cues and the social intimacy to know how to emote, to know what it meant to laugh or to cry or to be happy or to be sad. Because these are things that we kind of have to learn from things in our environment. Now, can this process be reversed? Well, the answer is yes and no. If an infant or a child is rescued early on during a period of deprivation from the environment, then they can recover. The child can recover fully or to some extent. However, the longer time that passes, the more years that pass where the child is in isolation, the less likely it is that that child will ever catch up developmentally. So, she did show signs of improvement in the years. She could feed herself and play with toys. At the age of 8, her development was still pretty close to that of a 2-year-old. So she was 8 years old physically, chronologically, but she was really functioning as a 2-year-old. She did not use words until the age of 10, and Anna died at age 10 due to a blood disorder, probably related to all the years of abuse that she suffered before that. So it kind of sets the stage for understanding the importance of human contact, of social stimulation. It's like I said in class, if you take someone who's genetically endowed with all kinds of smarts, the most intelligent person in the world, but you put him in a closet or put him in a dark room for 18 years, and then you pull him out of that room and give him a test for college, he's not going to do very well on the test because he's not been exposed to anything. So the environment is huge here. So we're making the environment side of the argument here. Now there's another classic study by Harlow. I don't know that this is mentioned in your book. I think it is. Yes, it is actually on page 338, I believe. He set up a study. I'll try to make this simple. In 1962, monkeys in complete isolation from their mothers for 6 months with adequate nutrition. When they were returned to the group with their mothers, they were passive and they were very anxious. Monkeys with an artificial mother, with a wire mesh and a wooden head, and again with adequate nutrition, when they were returned to the group 6 months later, they could not interact at all with others in the group. And then monkeys with a soft terry cloth mother did much better, and again with adequate nutrition. When they were returned to the group, they did much better, and they were physically closer to their mothers, if you will. So the more closely, you can see the terry cloth monkey there, the more closely the fake monkey resembled the real mother for the monkey, the better they adapted and the better that they recovered from that isolation. So you can see the wire mesh versus the terry cloth monkey. And that's Dr. Harlow, who was the psychologist who did the study in the 1960s. So, results: monkeys benefit greatly from closeness to their mothers. This experiment confirmed the importance of adults cradling infants closely, especially mothers cradling their infants, to ensure proper socialization and development. Research shows that monkeys could recover from as much as 3 months of isolation, but after that, there was permanent and irreversible damage, behaviorally and emotionally. Beyond that 3 months of being away from mother and being away from the group, they just couldn't recover socially. So, the idea of socialization, are we talking nature or nurture? Is it the environment or is it hereditary? Well, Charles Darwin, we've talked about him before. His theory of evolution leads to the nature arguments or the biological arguments for socialization. He says that we have these characteristics that we pass on from one generation to the next, and that the most suitable characteristics or the strongest characteristics that we have will survive and thus be passed on to the next generation and so forth. Are people instinctively competitive? Are some people just born criminals? Are women naturally more emotional than men? And biological theories would suggest that yes, maybe so. Maybe yes is the answer to all these questions. Cesar Lombroso was a criminologist back in the 1920s or 30s. He asserted that body type was a biological blueprint for criminality. He was suggesting that endomorphs who are overweight or obese were less prone to criminality, and that also ectomorphs, who were very thin people, were also less prone to criminal behavior. He said it were the mesomorphs that you had to worry about because they were very muscular and very suited to commit crimes, especially physically aggressive crimes. Now, we know this isn't exactly true, and I work in a prison. I can tell you that most of the inmates that we have are either endomorphs or ectomorphs. There aren't a whole lot of the big, bulky, muscular guys running around prisons, at least not in West Virginia. But these are ideas that were there. William Sheldon was a psychologist as well back in the 1920s and 30s. He felt that men were biologically predisposed to be criminals if they had more body hair, if they had larger heads, if they had bushy eyebrows, and if they had really big protruding foreheads. So men that were basically large, muscular, hairy, looked kind of like apes, if you will, were more savage and would therefore be biologically prone to commit crimes. And we know that's not true today. There's too much weight there on the biology side. Now, John Watson, a psychologist, was hitting the other side of this argument. He was saying, it's not really so much biology or genetics, it's really the environment that's going to make a difference. And if you remember, we talked about behaviorism, the branch of psychology that focuses on overt, observable behaviors. I'm not going to beat you up with reinforcement and punishment again, but you may remember he would assert that through reinforcement and punishment, he could mold any human being into anything in the world. He could make someone a hairdresser, a construction worker, a scientist, a teacher, based on reinforcements and punishments if he were allowed to manipulate the environment. Again, that's pretty heavily on the environment side. The answer to these questions about criminality or whatever is probably somewhere in the middle. We develop in terms of both environmental and social influences, as well as our genetic and biological makeup. It's a combination of the two. So, again, the agents of socialization, the media, our families, even your race and ethnicity, or perceived race or ethnicity, your schools, your gender, your sex, being male or female, your peer groups, your religious beliefs, all of these things help to shape and mold you into who you are and what you are. And it's impossible to escape the influence of the media. The media is always putting images out there for us, telling us how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to dress, how we're supposed to look, especially if we want to be popular. Churches as well, another socializing agent. Our schools, and I think this was just kind of funny. This was a real mistake that someone made. Read it for a minute and you'll catch the mistake, I think. Just a little funny for you there. certainly television, our phones, the media has a big influence on us. Our families have tremendous influence in terms of how we are socialized. And we're going to call that the end of this part. Thank you.